Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday,
Happy
April already.
April 4 already. We're already in spring, man.
Yes, happy Easter.
Happy Easter today.
Mhm.
It's a big day if you celebrate Easter. I think Easter is the second biggest holiday if you follow that religion.
That's
Christmas,
when Jesus came back, right?
I think so. Yes.
Mm,
Yes. I think it's if you're Catholic or Christian, Christmas is a big one, and then
mm,
it's Easter,
mm.
or so I've been
I see.
told. So I don't know.
I see.
And is everything going okay?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's good. That's
We're
good.
in our third lockdown now. So
Did we ever get out of our second one?
gray zone. So I don't think there's much difference other than
For us, for Toronto.
exactly. Patios are closed.
Yeah, but
Patios were open for 1 week.
oh man, yeah, yeah. I think I remember when patios were open, they're like, "Oh, like you're gonna be able to get your haircut soon," and then
Yeah,
variants
those
had
poor
other
people.
thoughts.
They're
Yeah,
they've been
small
literally
business owners, man. Oh,
shut for it's gonna be like half a year. This this
more.
this one,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
November we shut down and it's gonna just keep going. So
Yeah, dude. Wow, is it November, December,
yeah,
January? Wow.
November. They shut things down
Oh,
November. Yeah,
yeah. I was
crazy.
like some of the stats of like small business owners and like I think I read that like the average like small medium business owner in Canada has like almost $200,000 in debt just
Mm,
accumulated, and it's like, man, it sucks. Like
yeah.
hopefully, like you think that there'd be more support for them financially, but
Yeah.
yeah, man, third wave, kind of scary.
Mm,
Numbers are
yeah.
going up.
Mm,
Another thing that has been scary. So what day is it? April 4th.
hmm.
So I forget when the last time we talked was, but I think in the time that we've talked, did we talk about the Atlanta shootings last time?
No.
We didn't, right? Okay. So I
Mm,
guess in the couple of weeks that we've talked, there was that shooting in Atlanta at the
mm,
massage parlors,
hmm.
where uh, most of the people that died were like Korean or Asian American.
Mm,
And then I guess that kind of sparked a wider discussion, and it kind of brought to attention again on how there's been a rise in violence against Asian Americans and Asian Canadians since this whole COVID thing has started.
mm.
So I guess the first question that I ask you is like, what are your thoughts on all that? Just as a broad
Yeah.
like reaction to it, like like yeah, what are your thoughts
Yeah.
overall?
So one, I was like really surprised that very progressive cities like New York and San Francisco have one of the highest like hate crimes against Asian American.
Okay,
I
oh, I
was
didn't
very
know that.
surprised. Yeah.
Okay,
But then I thought maybe, oh, okay, like it's like in order for there to be hate crime against Asians, there has to be a lot of Asians. Where are a lot of
yeah,
Asians?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Those
yeah,
two
yeah,
cities.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
maybe that's why. I
yeah.
didn't really see the correlation. I was like, oh, I always thought more of these things happen in more maybe like the South or something. But then
Oh
like,
yeah,
are there Asians there? Like
yeah,
that's the
yeah, yeah,
question.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then second thing, which I really hate, is most of the hate crimes are against elderly
yeah,
and female.
yeah,
So I guess yeah, the assaults are happening where the aggressor knows that the other party can't
yeah, yeah.
fight back.
Very cowardly. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah. What about you? What are your thoughts?
You know, it's interesting. Like since COVID thing started, like I think a couple of months in, couple of weeks in, the rise in attack on Asian Canadian, like in people of Asian background, like it's been in the news. Like it's nothing new. Like right, I don't know if you've seen, but like since COVID started, there has been a rise in attacks. And again, so from that
Mm,
perspective, it has been nothing new. Um, but the one thing, like the first time that like I was particularly like it kind of came into my mental psyche was yeah, like I said, a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, like when COVID was very new, the first couple articles that I would read pop up on like whatever, what, and then like you said, exactly what you said. These attacks weren't happening on like young fit people. They're happening against like old grandmas and grandpas just doing their thing. And then the first person I thought of was my mom. And particularly why I thought of her was because a bunch of years ago at Young and Finch, she was crossing the street and some crazy homeless dude came up and just punched her in the back of the head.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like total random. And this was years and years ago.
Whoa.
And yeah, like there was a punch at the back of the head or in the back of the shoulder, like like she was just crossing the street and this guy just fucking hit her and he ran away, which is like really like disturbing and it's unsettling, right? But that was obviously, again, this was years ago, or this was before COVID. But when these attacks, like hate crimes, started coming up, like that's the first thing I thought of, and I was like worried. So it was the first time in my life. I guess what I'm trying to say is like during this time, seeing these like incidents come up, it's been the first time in my life that I could ever remember being worried for somebody because of like what they look like. Like it's not something like, have I personally gone through some shitty experiences? Yes. Has my dad and my mom? Yes, because they've told me stories, right? But this was like the first time I was actually genuinely scared for like the safety of someone. And that was really like, it was a really disturbing feeling. It was like a really unsettling feeling because on one hand, it's like, I try to be very rational, being like, statistically, it's not likely to happen. Worrying isn't going to do anything. Whether I worry or not, it's not going to change anything. But you just still can't help but to feel like this nagging worry that you have. Anyway, so I remember I thought that for the first time, and it hasn't really gone away. If I'm honest with you, like it's still there because she takes bus to go to work, and like she's not old, but you know what I mean. Like it's like a weird, it's like a weird feeling.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's been an interesting experience to say the least to kind of think about that. And yeah, precisely because the people who do this are obviously messed up, but they're obviously like attacking very vulnerable people, which is why, like for me personally, like I'm not like it doesn't impact me, but it has crossed my mind for people who I think of. So yeah, so I don't know, like so from that perspective, it's been a little rough. So do you think, like, I mean, I guess your parents are in Korea. Like, I guess it.
They're surrounded by their own kind. But
yeah,
they did their PhD in States back in 80s, and then some stories they tell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But back then it was, I think, Wild Wild West and anything goes.
Yeah. Fuck. Yeah. Do you think like, I mean, what would your thinking be behind why this kind of rise has kind of, and apparently another interesting thing I read was hate crimes across the board apparently in the States has gone down.
Oh, really?
Overall, but hate crimes against Asian Americans has kind of gone up.
Oh.
So what do you think are some of the reasons why like there's been an increase in attacks?
Well, one, okay, so I know it's like these thoughts probably come through people's mind where when they don't have any control over the situation, they look for a reason.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Like there's some things that happen personally too. Like, let's say, man, why did TTC have to break down this morning? I'm gonna be really late for work. This is super shitty. And then like, it's like it has nothing to do with you. It just happens. Like it just happens. But then I could be thinking like, oh, who can I find to blame?
Like a scapegoat.
And I think, yeah, exactly. And then this thing's been crazy, right? This COVID thing's just been nuts. And people are like losing their business. And it's just like, it does impact a lot of people. So I can see how like this could really make people angry. And they might be looking for an outlet where they can like put all their anger towards. It's like, because otherwise, like, we don't have any control over this at all, and that's like a terrifying feeling, I think, for human beings.
Okay. So looking for someone to blame first is
Yeah,
number one. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then now, hearing what you've just said, like in America, hate crime's gone down, but then like hate crime against. Do you think the hate just moves around? Do you think that's what happens?
I think I don't think it's moving around. I think the hate crime going down is just, I would guess, is a reflection of people just being at home a lot more.
Mm, mm,
Like you're gonna have hate crime like every year. There's always going to be incidents reported and many obviously not reported. So I would guess that the reason why it's gone down overall isn't because hate's moving around. It's just, my guess is maybe people are just staying home more. So because of that, maybe many statistics have gone down. So many people's livelihoods have been impacted. People have lost businesses. They're looking for someone to blame. But are the people who've lost their businesses, do you think it's like, is that the only thing? Like, I mean, what like, is that the, what are there other triggers, do you think, that are kind of like allowing these things to kind of grow?
mm. Now you put it that way. Maybe another thing could be, um, there were people probably always had this hatred towards certain
Sure. Yeah.
ethnicity, right? It's
Yeah.
like, it's not just Asians. Obviously, like it's way worse for African Americans.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, it's, yeah,
yeah,
there's always,
yeah. And then, but then, like with this COVID, it kind of gives them the ammo. It's like, oh, now I got something.
Mm,
Yeah, and like which it's really messed up. But then they could think like, oh, like my action can now be justified. I
yes.
knew it all along. They
Yes.
did this to everyone in the world. I have the right to do something back at them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree with you. I think another thing that's probably a big part is, like, I think language is like a very big, like what we say, what we don't say, and by
Mm,
people in power, like President Trump, for example, right? He was very early on, he called it the China virus.
yeah.
And there were reporters very straight, like at the very onset, be like, do you think that's a good idea to call it the China virus? Because
Mm,
you look like you're blaming China, and then like people might take that as like it's okay to blame Chinese people. And I'm a firm believer that I think that plays a part.
mm,
Now, if someone were to ask me to prove that, like, no one could ever prove that, like, right? Like what a political figure says, you can't, you can never directly tie it to what someone does. But I think that I think using language like that, like xenophobic language and like kind of like things of that nature, I think lets, kind of like what you're saying, it lets people think that it's okay, right? Like if he's saying some of that, like if he's saying like, oh, just blame it on China, then, oh, if he's saying it, then I'm allowed to say it. Like it's okay. Like he's saying what I'm thinking, and if he's saying it, then I'm okay to kind of like
mm,
the language. I'm having a hard time putting in these words, but language used by political leaders and sports leaders and people we look up to, and the people we around. Like if I use language among my friends or whatever, the language that we use kind of determines what other, like what actions and what other languages that the rest of the people around you can use, right? If you and I met and I brought someone in, like a third person into our conversation, and you and I started joking, and you and I started joking about, like, jokingly about, using the F word or the N word just in jokes, right?
mm,
That determines the culture with which you and I have kind of like live in, right?
mm,
And then that will then potentially allow this third person to be like, oh, if Tim and Hope say that kind of stuff, then it's okay for
mm,
me to say that kind of stuff as well.
mhm,
And I think there's degrees of that. The worst degree is like, oh, if Tim and Hope are saying that kind of stuff, then I can even say even more offside comments. Like it just kind of
mm,
determines the boundaries with which you and I can kind of speak.
mm,
When you have political leaders saying these kinds of things, I think it kind of makes people think that they're allowed to also say those things. And then then there's going to be people on the fringes who also then will think that if we're all thinking this, then we're all believe it's the same thing, and therefore I'm going to hit somebody and really lash out. That's a
Mhm.
lot of words. I don't know if that does that make any sense? Like, did that?
Yeah. I can draw some parallel. Like, for example, let's say, not a good comparison, but in certain countries, everybody eats with their hands. So that's
Yeah,
just what
that's
people
just
do, and
yeah,
that's completely acceptable. That's just the cultural thing.
yeah.
So I think it's like, yeah, setting the example.
Setting the example. There you go.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I think it's like if you and I know like if you ever read any like management books, like how to be a good leader at work, one of
Mm,
the things that always comes up is setting a good culture. Like I feel like
mm,
that's like a very common thing. And
mm,
one way to set culture is by the action and the languages that you use as a leader,
mm.
right? Like it's like it
Yeah.
comes up all the time. So when
Uh-huh.
you're the president of the United States saying these kinds of things, you are dictating the culture to the people who support you to say, hey, it's okay to say and think and believe these things. And by
Mm,
extension, I would argue that people would almost think that it's okay to like lash out.
mm.
This is what I'm trying to say. That's all
Yeah.
just words. I don't know.
Oh man, I didn't think of it that way. But you know what? I'm pretty sure even myself get easily influenced by what other people say. So
Of
like,
course. Yeah.
yeah, I probably just think like, oh, I'm not gonna just follow what other people say, but once the culture is set, I'm sure I will conform to the culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Yeah. It's yeah. So I think you're right in the sense of like there's people looking to like lay blame and trying to make sense of this all. And I think the other thing that people I think need to realize is like like the Chinese government is shady and can do a lot of things and did a lot of bad things, but you got to be able to separate the government from the people. And I
Right,
don't
right,
know if
right.
people are
Yeah.
able to kind of do that. It's like so um
It's like how you know how Koreans, like older generation Koreans, have beef with Japan.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and they just like, because it's like part of our education system, so we always, oh, like Japanese people, bad people. But then like it's not the it's not the people.
Oh
It's like,
no, yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah, yeah,
know.
yeah.
So that was the history.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah.
It's like the action like yeah, I mean, you got to be able to draw the line between the actions of a government and like the people
Yeah,
that were kind of,
yeah, yeah,
you know.
exactly. Yeah.
So I guess yeah, so like amidst like, obviously there's been like attacks and stuff like that. Like I it's unfortunate, and I don't think you and I have talked about this too much like in detail previously, but is it safe to say that you've probably had some instances where like being in Oakville or like in general life that you like have you had like some shitty experiences because you're a Korean?
Yes.
Racism? Yeah,
Yes.
eh? Okay.
Yeah. High school, big time, big
Yeah,
time in
eh?
high school. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Do you
Yeah.
mind like what like 'cause I didn't know this.
Yes. No. You've heard this,
Did I hear
but
this? Okay.
yeah. So like one really bad one was like I had like food thrown at me on a bus. Yeah. So that was bad. Yeah,
Oh my god. I didn't know that.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
And I've seen like my other friends who are Filipinos, um, that like, just jocks, like football players would like push them against the, yeah, lockers. But then I was like, oh, these people should really be careful. This is, like the jocks, because I know these Filipino guys have like knives in their pockets, so
Yeah, don't
they
fuck with
probably shouldn't like mess with them.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But nothing happened. But
And
yeah.
just because they're Filipino?
I don't know. It's high school, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
like first year, I didn't really understand because like I just came here,
Yeah,
so like
it
I
just
didn't.
you're just a
Yeah,
blank slate. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I was like, I didn't. Probably another thing would have been like us not speaking English much, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And us being very different. So like, but like second year of high school was much better because like I knew how to assimilate. make friends, and be more like them. And I think people just get afraid of what they don't know,
Oh,
what they're not
interesting.
used to, right? So they just fear what they're not used to. That's
No,
all.
okay, and this is, and you touched on something that like I kind of want to talk about a little bit. Is like,
Mm-hmm.
so first year, like you came into high school. First of all, I think it's safe to say when you're growing up, public school, high school, there's always going to be bullying. Not to
Oh
make it
yes,
right, but there's always going to be that kind of stuff.
yeah.
So first high school, in a year in high school, you went through some really shitty stuff,
Mm.
which I'm sorry to hear. And then in second year of high school, you just said that it was much better
Mm.
because you assimilated and you kind of um, fit in.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's really interesting that you say that. And this is kind of what I want to get into is like the way that it was fixed for you wasn't because of like it was resolved, like you had to resolve it by fitting into their system versus
Mm-hmm.
them figuring out that what they're doing is dumb.
Mm.
Right, like, which I think is really interesting because what I want to ask is like you've gone through some shitty stuff, I've gone through some shitty stuff.
Hold on. I haven't heard your story. So what happened in
Oh,
Meaford? Is this in
you
Meaford
know,
or
you know
Ottawa?
what, no, I so I honestly, like Meaford
Yeah.
was, I was very lucky. Like I never, like not never, but like I don't ever recall dealing with like really overt
Okay.
stupid stuff.
Mm.
Like in Meaford, like sure would there be little like comments here and there and but it was never, it never really crossed the line.
Okay.
Um it's funny. I don't know if I showed you this. After the whole Atlanta shooting thing happened, some
Yeah.
of my friends messaged me and they're like, "Oh, like, did you see what like this guy that I went to high school with wrote on his Instagram story?" I'm like, "No, because I don't really check out stories too much.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't think I had him on Instagram." And then someone took a screenshot of it, and then he's like, and again, this was like a day after the whole Irish, and he's like, "Oh, I remember in like grade 9, like my friend Hope, who was the only Korean guy in our small town, like he gave a talk to the entire class about what like the impact of microaggressions without knowing what a microaggression was." And he's like, "I'm very
Whoa.
thankful to that." Yeah, it was very nice. It was very, very nice of him.
Whoa.
Um, so I reached out to him. I said, "I really appreciate and he's like, "Yeah, it was, he said, he said like, oh, you're teaching a bunch of like hillbilly white kids like what it's like to just be in someone else's shoes."
Mm.
Anyways, the extent for me, especially in high school, like I had a very fortunate time. Like my high school was very fine. I remember in like the one time in Meaford, I was walking on the street and some guy
Mhm.
drove by me who I didn't recognize and he said some stupid stuff.
Oh,
But like that wasn't high school. Like it was very fine.
mm.
I so my experience is um more so I'd have to say once I got to Toronto and I'm
Really?
an adult. Yeah, 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 yeah.
What?
Yeah, which is really interesting, eh? Um, I would say, sorry, so I'll take a step back. Most of the things that I've dealt with were very, um, what they would be called like microaggressions. I don't think I've ever had overt, like, like, like anything like what you went through, except in Alberta. There's one time thing in Alberta, which is like I was walking by, like it was at Jamina's graduation. I might have told you this.
Yeah.
It was Jamina's high school graduation, and we're all there.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And then like all the parents were kind of sitting at the different tables, and
Yeah.
I had to go take a leak, like just to walk, just to walk. And as I'm
Yeah.
walking between chairs and stuff like that, and as I'm
Yeah.
walking between chairs, this one guy like sticks his chair out, and he kind of like hits me, and I'm like, oh, like I thought I walked into him. He's like, and he's
Yeah.
like, what did he say? Something about like what, like don't walk this way or something like that. I don't know. It was very stupid. It was very stupid, and I just laughed it off.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, so for me, the comments that I've had were there's a couple things that stick out. So one of them, three of them to stick out.
Mm.
Um, two of them had to do with like I was at a bar with friends. They're actually
Okay.
all three of them were at bars.
Which bar?
Oh, I don't even remember.
Was I there?
No, 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 no,
No, I
no.
wasn't there.
But
Okay.
no, it was along the lines of Um, two of the times I was at a bar with some like friends of friends, and then like
Uh-huh.
the friend I was talking to would be like a pretty white chick, and then guys would be like, dude, like what are you doing? Like it would be comments along the lines of like you have no chance, or like you're Korean and therefore
Mm,
like what are you even like why are you talking to this hot white chick kind of deal, which is really interesting. One of them happened in Waterloo and one of them happened in Toronto. The third time that I
mm,
thought of was I was at a bar, and I was with a friend of some friends. So because it was just a bunch of people, I was just kind of at the bar just by myself, just having a
mm,
drink, which I love to do.
mhm, mhm,
And this one guy showed up and he started like trying to tease me, which never I don't know who this fucking guy is before, right?
mm,
I don't know what he's doing. And he I forget what he was saying, but he was just very aggressive and just really in my face. And I really wasn't saying anything, right? And he was with a group of like a bunch of like like white dudes and white chicks. They're all like there together. And I think he was like just trying to like and like I wasn't saying anything, right? I'm just kind of like, whatever. And then he was just like I said, just I forget what he said, but along the lines of like just trying to like just like tease me and like just
mm,
really weird juvenile stuff. And then like he was saying stuff, and then I remember going like, because I think he thought I was by myself.
mm,
So he was saying stuff, and then all of a sudden, and I wasn't saying that. I just told a couple of my friends to come over, and then I'm like, this guy's trying to tell me jokes, so he's just trying to make fun of me, and I want you to see what he's trying to say. So and I think he didn't realize that I was with that other big group of people.
mm, mm,
So these guys came, and they're like, "What is it?" And like they didn't know what was going on, and then he just kind
mm,
of like looked at me and he just kind of walked away.
mm,
It was really interesting. So, anyways, um, so yeah, so I've been fortunate in the sense of like I haven't really dealt with too many aggressive things, but a lot of subtle things, which is
mm.
like stupid. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah.
But yeah,
So go ahead.
but
Sorry.
it's like now you say these things. Like I think sometimes I'm so oblivious and these
Yeah.
things are happening, but I don't recognize because it's like I think when I lived in Oakville, I was way more like heightened senses.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I would pick it up right away.
Yeah.
But then since going to Waterloo and like I think I kind of forgot
Or you just
that.
don't. You just kind of.
Yeah, yeah, it's so oblivious because like it hasn't happened. But then like I'm remembering a few more things where it wasn't aggression at all, but more like people making comments.
Right. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
especially when I'm out with white girls.
Oh
It
yeah.
happens.
Yeah. It happens.
It's
Yeah.
weird. Like they always walk up and they're like, "Oh, are you guys together?" And it's like, and a guy, like a white guy, yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it has happened multiple occasions
Yeah. Yeah.
with multiple different white girls.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like randomly. It's like why? And then I was always like, yeah, and like yeah, and then
So
it's like what a weird thing to say.
yeah, right, right, totally,
Yeah,
right, yeah, no,
yeah.
for sure. Like it's,
Oh,
and I think and I think this is, we don't have to, I mean, get into it because I think it's another
yeah.
big one, but I think it has to do with culture. Like, and this ties into why I think cultural representation is very important.
Mm,
Like, 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 like I think. So sorry, let me ask you this. So when people say this, are they in? First of all, it's really inappropriate. Second of all, is it in like a shock, or is it like what is the reaction? Is it like so they obviously assume you guys aren't together, number one.
yeah.
Number two, when they ask you if you are, is a question coming out of just like what is the what is the reaction of
Oh
these
no,
people?
the vibe
The
I got
vibe,
is
there you go.
this happened. I remember three times. Three times there probably would have been way more, but like three times just because like I clearly remember like somebody tapped on me, so that's why I remember like very clearly. But it was
Fuck.
very positive, and they were
Okay.
like, "Oh, are you guys together?"
Sure.
And
Okay.
then they'll
Okay.
be
Okay.
like, "Oh, okay, you guys look really good together," and then they just
Mm,
leave. So then, but then like, okay, maybe it's not an Asian thing. Maybe they're just creepy
okay. Well,
because I
so
don't think I would just walk up to a couple on the street that I've never met before,
sure.
or at
Yes.
a bar, because
Yeah.
this has happened at a bar.
This
Yeah,
has.
in oh god, what's further than Liberty Village, past Drake Hotel.
Uh,
Oh my god. Anyway,
Parkdale.
not important. Parkdale. Yes,
Yeah.
this has happened in Parkdale. Yeah.
So
I was like,
so let me ask you this. So there's two trains of thought. So if someone is I would guess if the person that tapped you on your shoulder and asked you if you were together, you said you had good vibe, like it wasn't negative vibes, right? Or was it good?
well, when tapping was happening, I was like, I had no idea what the hell was happening.
Right.
Are you guys together? Up to that point, still, I'm very like, what the hell is happening? And then afterwards, they would always say something nice, and then they'll.
Okay.
So then at that point, my assessment was like, oh, like this is really, really weird.
It is weird. Yes.
Yeah. Very, very weird.
So I'm of two trains of thought. So on one hand, like I think part of the reason why you get the comments and I've gotten the comments is because people it just isn't common. I think that's one thing, right? I think when you don't see it that often, it's like a bit of a shock. And I think if someone is asking, first of all, it's still really inappropriate. Like who cares, right? But I would draw the line between if someone's doing this and being like, in their head, they're like, I've never seen this before. I've never seen a Korean guy with a kid, like a white girl before. Like, I'm gonna make a comment because I'm shocked. That's one thing, which I don't take it as negatively because it's like for me, I don't think of it as any different than like if you have 5-year-olds hanging out together and the one 5-year-old's like, where are you from? Like, I just don't know where you're from. Like, are you from China? Like they just don't know, and not knowing isn't the same as like willful ignorance. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, you know what I mean? Like if you brought kimchi to lunch and someone's never seen it before and they smelled it, they're like, what is that, right? If they take it negatively, that's one thing. But if they're just genuinely curious and they don't know, that's like I don't think that's a negative thing. The experiences I've had wasn't that. It was along the lines of like the straight up the dude was like, what are you doing? Like, why? What are you doing? Why are you trying to talk to her? Like, you have no shot with her. Like you are a Korean guy. Don't talk to like. It was a willfully negative experience. Were you like? Did you have experiences like that?
Or I don't know. Maybe I never interpreted it that way, but I usually always just like assume positive intent.
Yeah.
I am very oblivious. Funny story. Alice and I were walking down this last summer. We were just walking through like that back path of the Eden Center where the church is, and then there's a lot of like homeless people. I was wearing a white shirt, and I guess my chest was a little bit showing.
Nice.
And there was this guy walking towards us, and then he just goes like, "Woo! I would like to something." And then Alice is like, "Oh, he really wants to do something with your chest." And then I was like, I just never think anything's happened.
Right. Yeah.
Until someone taps, then I understand. It's like, oh, you mean. Yeah. But so I think I probably just
which is a good thing. Which is a good thing. Yeah. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, because otherwise it would like impact you and hurt you like these people did to you, right? I guess like it would remember, and that kind of sucks.
Well, it's not just that. It's just like, like if you like, it's good to just assume positive in everyone is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. I think, and again, this is like another, like, I think this is why I think like I think of this kind of stuff, right? And I strongly believe that part of the reason why it's like I got the comments that I did is because, first of all, it's just not common. Like I think like that in and of itself is like a bit like, holy shit, you kind of turn your head. But I think the other thing is like people's lives, like your life, my life growing up, it's shaped by the people around you, obviously. Yeah. And I think it's also shaped by the media that you consume, movies, TVs, whatever it is that you consume. When you've never met someone from another country, when you've never met a Korean guy or a Chinese guy, and your exposure to that is only through movies and TV,
Mm.
And particularly when those characters in movies and TVs are like scrawny, pushover, like not a sex appeal, like they're not like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That
yeah, yeah.
that like I strongly believe that that dictates your view, right? Like if someone says that like, oh, the Indian guy, like he's I don't find Indian men sexy,
Mm.
it's because the Indian men that they've ever only ever been exposed to is probably specifically like a nerdy, like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah.
so I think it's because of those views, like oh, the Korean guy can't be sexy or the Asian guy can't be hot. When you've only kind of seen those images and that's kind of how you view like someone of that background, that then kind of permeates into like how you like, of course, like why is this Korean guy, why is this Chinese guy talking to this really hot like Canadian chick? Like that just doesn't compute because
Mm.
my exposure to that kind of stuff has only ever been skewed. So which is why for me personally, I think representation is like a very important thing. Your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Well, I probably will start noticing more now, but thinking a little differently. Like before, like I said, I always felt like I have my own views. It's not as easily influenced, but then probably it is. I just don't. I I'm not as mindful about it. Probably. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And to a certain degree, I just like kind of just because of like a high school experience, I just accept it just exists and that's just how it is.
Mm.
Um, and I just, well, this is the opposite of assuming positive intent, but almost cutting people slack that,
Mm.
like, like it's okay for them to feel that way, or it's okay for them to think that way,
Mm.
because that's just how it is.
I see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
So,
okay. So you know what's funny? So the one thing that I've personally been thinking about the last couple of weeks since this whole Atlanta thing, and even since this like in the last year with like Black Lives Matter is like I'm with you, right? Like I'm very like my life like control only things you can control. Like if you let what everyone says or do bother you, then you're going to be very miserable and an angry person. You can only like you know what I mean. Just kind of do you, and if someone says something stupid, then it is what it is. But recently I've been having this like I've been wondering if kind of standing by, not saying anything, is just contributing to the problem. So, for example, like over the last couple of weeks with this rise in like stop Asian hate, like that's been like a big thing, right? Like you watch a couple of videos, you watch a couple of this, couple of that, and I think like the U.S. and Canada has like a really shitty history of all this stuff, right? And like a lot of it I wasn't aware of, you know. And I think part of the reason why I wasn't aware and a lot of people aren't aware is because like people just like when shitty things happen, maybe people aren't saying enough about it. Like you know what I mean? Like so for me, if I were to reflect that in my personal life, like if I hear something stupid, you know, it, usually you just brush it off or you just ignore it or whatever, right?
mm,
But then now I'm just trying to think like, is being silent and like is it enough?
mm,
If I see something that I don't like, or if I like hear something I don't like, there's obviously like levels and degrees to this, right?
mm,
Is me being silent because that's just kind of my personality? Like, is that a bad thing?
mm,
So I'll tell you a perfect example. A couple of weeks ago, Jamina, Drew, and I were sitting, and Jamina said something, and I forget what it was, but it was like her using language in a specific way about like interestingly enough about like Asian people or whatever. Like she was using like I forget what it was, and like I said, I'm like like that like that doesn't sound good. Like it doesn't. It sound you're saying it in like a in a way that like I I think sounds very like kind of offensive.
mm,
And that like to me, I'm like I guess what I'm trying to get at is before I probably wouldn't have said anything because it is what it is, and she's gonna say whatever. But I think I'm gonna try to be a little bit more proactive
mm,
if I hear some stupid, or if I like to kind of try to correct it or to say, hey, look, if something's happening, instead of being silent about it,
mm.
be saying that it's dumb. Kind of rambling. Sorry.
Well, no, 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 no. But yeah,
Yeah.
I feel you. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a good point. Maybe I should stand up for other people and myself too more.
Yeah, and the thing is,
Uh,
it's like my personality. I think you and I are very similar in the sense of like whatever, like it, like you know, don't let things bother you and stuff like that. But it's just maybe for me, I just need to be like, you know, in certain pockets, certain instances when these things come up, is to be like a little bit more like, oh, like you know, just saying something. So,
mhm.
anyways,
Yeah.
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 Was there? I know we had a couple of other points. I mean, did you want to? And was there like, did you want to touch base on any other points that we got, or?
No. Oh, lastly, I saw some stats. I was
Sure.
like, I saw a global news segment about the protest, and then I think they said since the pandemic happened, there has been 1,800 hate crimes against Asian in Canada, like registered, like actually someone reported, and then
Yeah.
US was like 3,500 or something. So I was like, damn, I thought Canada would be way better.
Yeah. Because on a per capita
Yeah,
basis, we're much. That's much
yeah,
shittier. Oh, holy fuck.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this what the hell? I guess that
Yeah.
would be a problem if that is actually the numbers. And I was like,
Oh
holy shit,
yeah. That is
that's
a
not
huge
good.
problem. Not good at all.
Damn. Yeah.
And it's
So
like, it's in our lifetime when we were kids, at least when I was a kid, the big one was like after 9/11. There was like this huge spike in hate crimes against Sikhs and Muslims and anyone with a beard. And I think I read that like those numbers might have gone down.
yeah.
But it's interesting. Like I was looking into this a long time ago or something else. Like prejudice and racism, like will all like unfortunately, it will always exist in some way, shape, or form. Um, that's not to say we shouldn't obviously do something about it, obviously, but it's interesting. Like it's interesting to see how ridiculous it is. So, for example, like so in Canada, as an example, right? Canada, like when after the Vietnam War, um, there was all these Vietnamese refugees that came to Canada. Vietnamese boat people is what they're called.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people very angry to say, hey, look, these Vietnamese people, if they come to Canada, they're not gonna be able to integrate with our way of life. They're jungle Vietnamese people. They're gonna do really terrible things.
Mhm.
Obviously, it wasn't the case. Isn't the case. The other thing was that I thought was really interesting was during before the Second World War or after the Second World War, there was just this massive influx of like Italian people and like
Mm.
other Europeans, and Canadians were all very like 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 the argument that these people come to Canada and like tear the fabric of Canada has always existed. The one thing that really surprised me
Oh.
was so yeah, like I knew that like when Italian immigrants came to Canada, it was very like there was anti-Italian like rhetoric.
Mm.
When Ukrainians came to Canada, it was very like, oh, they those dirty Europeans, like they can't do it. The one that
Mm.
surprised me was when there was this massive influx of Italian Catholics.
Mhm.
A lot of Protestant Canadians never thought that they could be true Canadians.
Mm.
And then the prejudice was that if you're Catholic, your allegiance is to the Pope, and it can't be like you're the Pope first and Canada second. Therefore,
Mm.
you could never. And I thought that was really interesting because in today's
Wow.
society, like discrimination against Catholics like in Canada just doesn't exist. At least I
Mm.
don't think it exists. So,
Mm.
anyways, I wanted to bring that up just to say that like it's just interesting to kind of see the same story over and over and over
Mm.
again across different generations with different groups of people, and it just has to do with like stupid fear.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess there's always people always come up with something.
I guess so. I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I think we should have a talk about Asian representation. That's been a really
Yeah.
interesting thing one for me.
Mhm.
Um, but anyways, was there anything else you wanted to chat about?
No, I think we can wrap it up here.
All right, man. That was good.
Good chat.
I'll see you next week.
Later.
Later, man. Bye. How do you stop?